welcome everyone to today's webinar. My name is Luisa. I work as Head of Support and Content here at Flourish. And today we're going to be looking at our 3D map template. I'm going to be giving a general overview because it's a very advanced and multifaceted template. You can do loads of different things with it. Too many things that we could possibly cover in one session. So we're also going to be having follow-up sessions in the coming weeks that focus on kind of more specific parts of it. So today is just going to give you an overview of the session, of the template in general, and all the things that you can do with it. Okay. And with me in the chat, I have Helena and Ilias, and there should be, oh, there's the picture of the team. So if you have any questions as we go, feel free to type them into the chat, and then Helena and Ilias will get back to you. And if there's something that you're still curious about, you can always email us after the session. So in today's session, we're going to be looking at 3D map. What is it for? How is it different to our other map templates? What are the different starting points that we offer? What does it look like in the data tab? What kind of data can we upload to it? What kinds of settings are available? And how can we bring it to life through animated stories? And then I've also prepared a few examples by other customers that we're going to look at the end of this webinar. So, an introduction to the 3D map template. The 3D map template is one of kind of many mapping templates that we offer at Flourish. By the way, I have a bit of a cold, so I'm in need of tea. So it's very fitting that this is a tea break. But yeah, I apologize for my croakiness. It's just that time of the year. But yes, our 3D map template lets you visualize large data sets of points, and it also lets you 3D extrude regions, and it lets you tell beautiful animated map stories. And what's really special about it is just that it supports loads and loads of points and data in general. It can deal with a lot more because it uses WebGL technology than some of our other templates like the projection map, which are kind of the go-to for everyday map making. But if you do have something with a bit more data, or you want to kind of animate things a bit more, kind of make use of those more advanced features, then the 3D map will be your friend. I have an example over here where we can see where it's being used for animating points over time. These are points showing Airbnbs in Istanbul. And as you can see, we have a timeline going on in the bottom where we can kind of highlight a certain range of time in a story. The story is what I'm clicking through now. And we can see we have these beautiful animations that are taking place kind of between the slides. And this is also something that I'll be showing you how to use, how to create in today's session. But first, let us move to the next slide and look at kind of an overview of the different reasons why you would use it instead of our kind of more basic projection map template. So there are many things that it can do that none of our other map templates can do, which you might want to use it. One of them is if you have GeoJSON regions, you might not just want to show those regions, but you might actually want to show them with a background of a map to kind of give some more context. This is probably especially useful for smaller regions where you might need kind of the outlying area and the labels and the map styling. You can also kind of show the style of the terrain with the different map styles that we offer. Another thing that you can do when you're visualizing regions is actually extrude them by a value column in your data. So we can see in this example here, we are extruding, I believe, by property prices in London. So those that have more high prices will kind of pop out in 3D more. Another thing that you can do with this advanced map template is animate points on a map over time, as we can see here, and as we just saw in the previous example. And finally, one of the newer features is that you can actually create heat maps. So these kind of density maps where points data is clustered into these overlay shapes to show with a gradient the kind of density, how the points are spread out on a region. So it's really one template, loads of different things you can do. And because of that, it can be a little bit daunting and a little bit overwhelming. There are loads of different data tabs and settings. And so today we're going to kind of start from an easy point and walk through some of them. But as I mentioned in the beginning, we'll also be kind of focusing on point-specific use cases in a separate webinar. And then the same will be the case for the region-specific use cases. First, we're going to jump into our template chooser and look at the available starting points that we have for you. I'm just going to swipe across to our template chooser, which you can find here. This is when you click new visualization. This is the page where you will arrive at. And we're just going to scroll down past the projection map because we don't want to look at that one today, but down to the 3D map where we can see these different starting points which we have available. We have animated points, regions and points. We have a UK hex map, a US county regions with a base map, and a US point map with linear color scale. Now, each of these obviously is a very different kind of map, also with very different regions that are being displayed. But this is just to give you an overview of the kinds of things that you can do and kind of combine. So you can show points and regions, you can show just regions, you can show extruded regions, you can extrude those regions on a base map or without a base map. So just to kind of give you an idea of the range of possibility. But of course, let's say, even if I start with this regions and points example, that doesn't hold me back from actually doing something else with it further down the line. This is just to give you an idea and help you get started. So if I do click on this regions and points example, it will duplicate this into my profile. I am now the owner of this visualization, and I can now make whatever changes I want to it. For example, maybe I decide I want to extrude after all. So for example, I could extrude by the population. Then I would just update that here in my height column binding. And under regions, I could select to extrude my regions. And then we have this nice extrusion happening already. So that's just, I just quickly wanted to mention loads of different use cases, only 4 or 5 starting points, but you can always start with one and then do something else to it. But we are going to start from scratch and upload our own regions in just a moment. And first, I want to talk you through the different data tabs that are available. So if I jump, oh, that was not the right one. Oh, yeah, sorry. I was looking at the wrong screen. If I jump back into my example here and switch to the data tab, we can see that we have 3 different tabs in our 3D map template. In most of our Flourish templates, we only have 1 tab of data. Sometimes we have 2, and in this one we even have 3. So the first one is our regions tab, and the regions are those that are being drawn on top of a base map, and they are GeoJSON shapes that are being drawn on our map. And these GeoJSONs are supplied in the same way as you would supply them in our projection map template. You basically have to upload a GeoJSON file to your regions tab, and then it will replace them. I'll quickly show you what it looks like when I clear this sheet and when I get rid of all these regions. We'll see in the bottom right corner, it has updated. We now no longer have regions that are being extruded, we just have these points. So now what we see as regions is actually our base map. So we're not actually able to kind of shade and fill our regions by a value because we're just using a base map. So let's upload some new regions to get started. I have some regions of London prepared for today's session, and I'm just going to drag them in. This is a GeoJSON file that I found on London Data Store, I believe. I'm just going to select to overwrite my current sheet, import it, and then it will upload my geometry column, my name column, and my value column. If you're ever looking for GeoJSON files and you're looking for a certain region, like I just uploaded London, you might want to upload another city or country, then we do have this source called GeoJSON, our resources page, where you can download a bunch of countries, also cities, and kind of groupings of regions, and we're adding more and more of these kind of every week. So do check back and try and find your regions here, or also feel free to get in touch. You can also always copy regions from one Flourish visualization into another. So for example, you could copy from your projection map into your 3D map, and those would also display. And when I say that copy, I just mean like Command A and then right click, not right click, but sorry, Command C, so, or Control C to copy them. And then you could paste those into this 3D map. But I digress. If I go back to my example now, and I zoom into about the area where London should be, I can see I have this black overlay now, and those are actually the regions that I just uploaded. The reason that they're displaying black is that the colors aren't being interpreted correctly. I currently have set them to be numeric, but let's see, if we look at our value column, that's currently bound to column H, which doesn't exist. So if I just change that to column C, and I'm just going to get rid of these height and category bindings for now. And now when I zoom back in, we should see that my little London is being shaded by my value column in my data. So that's the regions layer, and you can configure the way that it displays into much greater detail than that. But I'm just going to jump back to my slides and move on, because we're going to be touching on loads of other things today as well. So that was the regions layer, and as we saw, we have GeoJSON regions kind of placed on top of our styled base map. And again, if you want to make use of our GeoJSON resources, they will also be linked in the slides, and you'll be able to access those via our training page as well. So you can use your value column bindings, which is what we just did, to shade our London, but you can also use category when shading by a category, and height when extruding. We already saw that in use, but we could go back and just change that up again. So maybe we want to extrude by this value as well. Then we can see here, London is now being extruded by the same value as it is being colored by. It's quite tall. I might want to remove one of these zeros just to bring it down a bit. So you can play with that a bit until it kind of is to your liking. And while I'm here playing with this regions data, I'm actually going to jump over to the points data and clear this sheet because I don't really want to show my points anymore. These are earthquakes, and I'm no longer visualizing earthquakes, so I'm just going to clear that sheet. And that will also make our map kind of always default to the viewport of London, and it won't always zoom back out to the whole world because we no longer have all those points. So yeah, quick kind of quirk of the template, which we should be resolving soon, is that at the moment, when you're shading by value, you can actually have multiple columns. So I could have a separate column with values. Let me just show you a quick example. Here we go. In this example, I have another map, which I'm also extruding. And I have two value columns. I have one for unemployment and one for income. And I can just supply both of those under value. And then I will receive this little drop down here. And I can further tweak that if I go into regions and then controls. And then I can choose to have a different button style or even a time slider if it's dates over time. That might make sense. In this case, I think buttons work nicely. But the quirk that I wanted to mention is that this works only for numerical values at the moment. So if you did have two different categorical values, which we would supply under category, you can currently only have one. So if I want to color by state, for example, then I would just switch to categorical coloring. And now I'm coloring by state. And then you will receive this option to change the palette. So I just wanted to mention that, as it works a little bit differently as in other templates. You supply categories in the category column, and you supply numbers in the value column. And you can have more than one value here, but you can't have more than one category. And now that I'm shading by number, I'm just going to switch back to numeric shading again. I hope that makes sense. because I'm going to move on now. Great. Our next kind of data layer that we already briefly saw is our points sheet. The points sheet contains latitudes and longitudes. So you don't have to look for a GeoJSON file in this case with the regions, but you just need lat longs. You can find lat longs by Googling them or using an encoder tool such as this one that I've linked here for kind of lat longs, postcodes specifically. But most tools or most sources, when you're kind of downloading publicly available data about like points data, you will find lat longs in there. In our example, I'm just going to go back to our the one that we just created together, the London one. This is it. I'm going to upload some more London focused data. And I'm actually going to get rid of my extrusion again, just because I don't really need that for this example. So I'm just going to switch back to the data tab, head over to the points layer this time. And here we can already see there are loads of different column bindings available, and I will walk you through them in just a moment. So this time I have a data set with some trees, some nice trees that are located in London, their names and where they are, and of course their lat and long. And then we will just want to bind our columns to match the lat, the long, the scale, the color, the start time, the end time, whatever we have available. The only ones that you really need, as you can see here, are lats and longs. The others are all optional. In this case, I don't have any time data because I'm not going to be animating. It's just some trees, but I might want to color them by type of tree, for example. I could do that here, or I could bind some extra information for the pop-ups, such as my description, my photo, the source of my photo, etc. But for this quick demonstration, I'm just going to bind the color. And now we can see we already have our points displaying. And it's as easy as that. In our point settings, we can see there are a few different settings available. We can choose between pulses, circles, also different coloring schemes. So you can also have numbers and shade your points by those. And then, especially when you're animating points, and we'll get to that in a moment, you might want to make use of these more advanced settings around how they're counted and what the date and time format is, and also the animation settings. I'm just going to jump into a different version of that map because I have this one here where it's where I'm using a styled base map and some points with a point label as well. And I'll just quickly show you the point label one is down here. It's the last column binding. And if you bind a column here, the name will show up to it, which is quite nice. Show up next to it, I mean. And then here we can see an example of what a nice style pop-up can look like with an image and some links and some styling. You'd be able to do that under the pop-up settings. And here's just a quick glance at what that looks like. If you are interested in pop-ups more specifically, we've done a couple webinars on the topic, so you can go back and watch those. But I just wanted to mention that just like our other templates, the 3D map also supports custom pop-ups, custom panels, etc. Okay, so that's a quick intro to the points tab. And then the final tab that we haven't looked at yet. Oh, sorry, I have a bit more information here, which is that the scaling is used to size, the start time and end time are used to animate your points. So if you do have a year column, say in your data with the starting time, you could input that here under start time. Name ID is used when you have a moving point map. An example of that I've also linked here, and I can show you that in a moment. And then the counter value, this is also only relevant for animated maps, where you might want to kind of count how the points are progressing over time. I'll show you a quick example of that, just so that it is not too abstract. We have one here of some animated points where once it loads, I'll just take some tea. where we have our counter here. And so if we look at our data tab in this example, where we're, by the way, using this nice raster tile. Ooh, I just hit back by accident. Sorry. Okay, so if you look at this example, I don't have any regions data, I just have points data. And we can see that it's a lot of points data, which is why it's a little bit slow, but let's just give it a minute. Okay, so here in this example, we have a start time bound to column R, which is year unit in service. We have an end time, which is year unit retired from service. This is data around power plants. So it's kind of from when to when was a power plant in action. So it makes sense to have a start and an end time. And then in addition to that, we have our counter category, which is what we're using for kind of counting these different categories. We want to have renewables, non-renewables, and other. And then if you do have that kind of information in your data, you can just bind that here. So in this example, it is energy type, and that is how you bind those categories for it to count through. And then there's also different options for visualizing that counter, which you can find in the counter settings. But again, we will be looking at points in more depth in a separate session. I just quickly wanted to touch on that. Okay, finally, the last kind of data sheet that we have available is our inset map. You can turn this on in the settings, and if I go back to our example here, then under inset map regions, at the moment, this is empty. If I now go into my inset map settings and say display map, it will always default to the world. But since this is a London specific example, I might want to upload some regions of the UK instead. And now again, I would probably go about this by going and getting the region geometry, so the GeoJSON from either our dataset page or a different visualization. And I'll just quickly show you how I would go about doing that. In this case, if I just want the UK regions, I could just go into one of our projection map starting points and just copy these regions here. I'm just going to copy that first column, go back into my 3D map example, paste that in, and now it will take whatever is in this column and just render that as our inset map here. So now we can see we have an inset map of the UK and no longer of the world, so it makes a bit more sense, and it automatically kind of highlights our region that we have focused here. And then if I kind of change, you'll notice how that changes the outline as well. You can also customize the colors of this. So the kind of dark blue on dark blue is a bit dark. So the white one might be a better choice. Okay, that's the inset map. It's quite easy to get working. We do recommend simplifying the regions a bit. You can see that this one has all these kind of scratches going on. That's because the GeoJSON is quite detailed and this is quite a small representation of it, but you can simplify that quite easily using MapShaper. Okay, we're going to look at the different settings for base maps now. Gosh, our default base map setting is the vector base map. And you can choose from a number of different ones here. But you can also select custom palette to create your own. So if you have, colors and region guidelines, for example, roads should always be black, you can configure that here. And then create your nice style. And this can also be included in your theme. Then under raster, you have the option to upload your own raster tiles. These have to be supplied in a specific format, there is a list of available kind of public raster file sources. I will quickly show you here. We have this handy help doc about how to customize the style of your 3D maps, and it will talk you through kind of the requirements for the different base map styles. We have a list of public raster tile servers here. So these are used kind of where you have very specific styling needs, maybe for your company even, and you can't, you want to be able to override those. I have another example. I'm just quickly going to show you where we used raster tiles, just to show you the kinds of things you can do. So this one is a Swiss map with Swiss raster tiles. As you can see, it has a very specific look and feel. It's like very designed. And for the different layers of zoom, it has different kind of images configured. And basically, this is just a set of images, and they are organized in a pyramid scheme. So it kind of shows some at one level, and then underneath that level, it shows another layer of images. Just to give you an idea of the kinds of things you can do, by default, we've made one nice style available, which is this ship map tile style here. So you can already make use of that. Okay, and finally, there is the projection option where you don't want to have a base map at all. We are almost there. Yeah, we also have different options for points. And I think I'm gonna have to end after this because my voice is just not letting me go on. But we have pulses, circles, and heat map. And you can also supply different information for animated points around time formatting. So that would be done under points and then time formatting. And I've also linked the help doc there. And I'm just going to jump to the end now because my darn voice is letting me down. Sorry. Basically, you can also create stories using our Flourish stories capability. I have linked a help doc here on how to do this, where you can combine different views and then animate between them. And I have also linked a few nice examples in our slides. We have one by the Investigative Bureau of Investigative Journalism. I believe this was the New Statesman, who made a nice 3D map using their with custom pop-ups. And finally, we have this nice example about the Pandora Papers, where we where they created an animated point map with lat longs over time. So these are the kinds of things you can do with our 3D map template. I've also listed a bunch of resources, help docs, and blog posts with loads more nice examples that I would love to show, but I don't want to have another coughing fit. So I'm going to end it there. Thank you so much for attending.